They laughed together when the world was not looking for it. They consoled each other when life was difficult. But there was a stillness behind the smiles. A silence of pride, grief, and remorse. For years, Elton John kept the truth hidden about the closeness he shared with Princess Diana and the sorrow that nearly tore them apart. Now he's ready at last to share the story that transformed their lives forever. The night they first met. That summer of 1981, a year that will alter British history forever. Prince Charles planned to marry a girl called Diana Spencer, who was an assistant in a nursery school. And Britain itself was swept up in the fairy tale. But for Elton John, already one of the world's most famous artists, that year was something far more personal, the start of a friendship that would change his life. Elton had by this time become accustomed to the company of royalty. The Queen Mother liked his music, and Princess Margaret, with her rebel flair, often invited him to small parties at Kensington Palace. He'd played for nobles, eaten with dukes, and even told jokes with Prince Philip, who once scolded him for driving a bright yellow Aston Martin about Windsor. But for all the grandeur, Elton had never been truly comfortable in those surroundings. That all changed on one memorable night at Prince Andrew's 21st birthday party located within Windsor Castle. The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, jewels, and royal formality. Elton, dressed conservatively for him, sat at the piano, playing softly as visitors mingled. Later he said he had felt nervous and out of place amid so many lords and ladies. Then he turned and looked across the room and spotted her. Diana Spencer just walking in, young, radiant, and hardly a royal yet. The air changed. She had an amazing social ease, Elton later wrote in his autobiography, the capacity to make anyone feel at ease in her company. Their eyes locked and he smiled nicely. She smiled warmly back. In a few minutes they were chatting like old friends. They giggled at the odd music playing and ended up dancing the Charleston together in the center of the ballroom, miming. A moment so absurdly spontaneous that even the Queen noticed and grinned. That night, Elton would later add, I felt as if I'd known her forever. That charm and humor was a lifeline for Diana. She was weeks away from marrying into a family that believed in responsibility, order, and silence. Soon the journalists would be dissecting her every action. She was refreshingly authentic, unassuming, quick-witted, and full of empathy for Elton. She was great company, he remembered. The best dinner guest, terribly indiscreet and a real gossip, yet she really cared about people. That night their friendship developed, two outcasts in their own worlds. He, a flamboyant musician always in the limelight for his sexuality. She was a woman on the brink of losing her freedom to the royal establishment. They observed each other's pain without judgment. And that shared experience, formed out of laughter on a dance floor, would become one of the most enduring friendships of the 20th century. Neither could have realized it would end in unspeakable sorrow, and one day Elton's voice would be the one to say farewell for them. A friendship tested by celebrity. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Elton John and Princess Diana were inseparable in a way that very few people around them understood. Their lives were living under a constant blitz of flashguns. But underneath the headlines was a friendship based on honesty and openness. Whenever they appeared together, at charity galas, royal engagements, or music concerts, the cameras captured their smiles and laughing. But the intimate tenderness that held their tie together was invisible to the public. Elton used to say that Diana was gifted. She had a way of putting the most powerful individuals in the world at ease. But never was she at peace herself. Between expectation and feeling, between monarchy and humanity, she was torn. Her marriage to Prince Charles cooled during the course of the 1980s. The newspapers were full of rumors of affairs, of remoteness and misery. Diana was smothering in Kensington Palace beneath the weight of royal formality. Elton knew loneliness well. He was battling his own demons with addiction, self-doubt, and the pressure of being in the public eye behind his flamboyant outfits and celebrity. They saw the pain in each other and an unspoken trust was born. And it was during these hard years that their friendship flourished. Diana frequently attended Elton's charity activities, particularly ones that raised awareness about AIDS, a cause dear to both their hearts. When the stigma of AIDS was at its apex, Diana broke royal protocol to visit sufferers, shake their hands and embrace them without gloves. Elton once remarked this one act changed the public understanding of AIDS forever. It was the moment he discovered how truly fearless she was. She didn't care about image or gossip. She was worried about people. There were light times as well. Diana had a wicked sense of humor that was a perfect combination with Elton's. She teased him about his showy attire, and he appreciated her ability to make royal rigidity into charm. Elton had been to parties, where she would laugh hysterically at his quips, or roll her eyes at the aristocracy's arrogance. But wherever they went, trouble was sure to follow. One evening during a private dinner party in London, both Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone were guests and they both fell in love with Diana. Things immediately descended into what Elton described as a near-fist struggle for her attention. He subsequently wrote that she could get Hollywood superstars ready to fight. They were completely enchanted. Yet, despite the throngs and the adulation that followed her everywhere, Diana's private life was heartrending. She had battled bulimia, sleepless nights, and a sense of being unwanted. Now and again Elton would drop in to listen. No cameras, no crowd, just two pals fleeing the commotion. But as celebrity developed, so came pressure. Diana's milieu became more difficult to navigate, full of manipulation and palace intrigues. Elton worried about her all the time. He knew how delicate trust could be in that setting. By the early 1990s, they were as close as brothers, swapping jokes, bickering and leaning on each other. But tremendous affection brought the occasional dispute. Fame. Pride. Exhaustion. Their closest ties even started to fragment. And then, a misunderstanding would drag the friendship to its lowest ebb. Neither of them would forget the point. The gap. By the mid-1990s, the friendship between Elton John and Princess Diana was one of the most talked about pairings between a celebrity and a royal. They had survived media storms together, laughed through scandals, and supported each other in ways the public never knew. But then in 1996 something surprising happened. Something that would rip their friendship to shreds, leave them both wounded and mute. It began with a charity endeavor very important to Elton. He was working on a coffee table book of rock photography, a glamorous collection of photos of musicians, performers and artists, with all sales going to an AIDS fund. Diana had agreed to write the foreword. It was more than a favor. It was a declaration. She'd been an AIDS activist for years, shattering taboos and humanizing a disease many still dreaded. For Elton, putting her name on the project was an honor and a profound statement of kindness. Then, without warning, she retreated. Diana had a letter in her office, courteous yet aloof. She said she couldn't be part of it anymore. The reason, as Elton found out later, was royal disapproval. Buckingham Palace advisors had opposed to her appearing in a book containing pictures of semi-naked male models. Elton recalled that they didn't like the concept of a member of the royal family being involved with that kind of imagery. It felt to him like a betrayal, not of a princess, but of a buddy he thought he could rely on. Years later on Larry King Live, Elton revealed, "I wasn't too happy and I let her know that." He gave her a note of dismay. Diana was cornered and reacted with what he called a terrible letter. It was crisp, cold, final. And then there was silence. They didn't talk for months. Elton said he was extremely saddened, not so much by the decision, but the estrangement that followed. Diana, meantime, was under a terrible strain. Her divorce from Prince Charles had been finalized in August 1996. She had lost her royal title, her Royal Highness, and with it a part of who she was. The press rang her day and night, and the palace gave no comfort. With so many people with differing goals in her life, she began to wonder who she could actually trust. Elton thought palace advisors might have influenced her retreat, but privately wondered if she had weary of being associated with other people's concerns. Whatever the reason, damage was done. Two people who had previously shared everything, laughter, pain, even secrets of the monarchy, were now strangers. "It was horrible," Elton said afterward. "We always told each other the truth. But pride stood in the way." He said he could have called her, but he hadn't. "We were both too proud," he said. And by the time we could correct it, it was too late. For nearly a year the stillness between them was more suffocating. Behind closed doors, Elton carried on his charity work and Diana sought to rebuild her life as an independent humanitarian. But each carried the quiet ache of an unfinished friendship. Neither could have known that time was running short and that fate was about to bring them face to face again beneath the shadow of another tragedy. The call after Versace. On July 15, 1997, Diana and Elton's close friend, Italian designer Gianni Versace, was gunned down outside his Miami Beach estate. The news rippled through the fashion and entertainment world. Both Elton and Diana were distraught. She had worn a Versace gown for Harper's Bazaar in 1991 and loved him as friend and confidant. When he died, Diana was said to have asked her bodyguard, "Do you believe they'll do that to me?" It was a terrifying foretaste of things to come. Diana saw Elton in his anguish at Versace's funeral in Milan. They hadn't spoken in months yet. She stepped over and sought for his hand. "I'm so sorry," she muttered. "Our falling out was stupid. Let's be pals again." Elton later said the moment moved him deeply, but in classic Diana manner, she diffused the tension with laughter. "God, I'd love a polo," she said. Those were the words of comfort that came from her lips at that particular moment, he recalled. They laughed, and in that moment their bond was renewed. They promised to meet again soon. But that encounter would never come to pass, only 6 weeks later. The night the world stopped. Early hours of August 31, 1997, Elton John was woken by the sound of his fax machine. There had been a message. So sad to hear this terrible news. He turned on the television, bewildered, and the world stood still. Princess Diana died in a car crash in Paris, followed by paparazzi through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. She was 36 years old. Elton was heartbroken. Later he said it was unbelievable. "We had been laughing together just weeks before at Gianni's funeral, and now she was gone." The Spencer family invited him to perform at her funeral. He rewrote the lyrics to his 1973 song Candle in the Wind, originally penned for Marilyn Monroe, alongside Bernie Taupin. The new version started, "Goodbye England's Rose. May you always flourish in our hearts." Elton stood in Westminster Abbey on September 6, 1997, with millions watching across the world. His hands were trembling as he began to sing. It wasn't a show tune. It was a farewell. "For 4 minutes I felt like the world was watching me," he would later say. But it wasn't about me. It was all about her. The solo version of Candle in the Wind. 1997 became the greatest selling record in history with over 33 million copies sold. But Elton says he was never proud of it. Who would want to listen to it at all? He admitted it. It was morbid. It was never something I could be glad about. It didn't connect for him. It was a wound that never healed. Years passed, the legacy, the truth. But Elton never forgot his pledge to protect Diana's children. Decades later, when Prince Harry was subjected to extreme media persecution, Elton spoke up publicly. "I feel a strong sense of duty to safeguard Harry and his family from the kind of journalistic intrusion that led to Diana's murder." He remains close to both princes, regularly entertaining them privately at his home. Their short-lived arrangement in the 90 seconds later haunted Elton for years. "I wish I could go back," he said. "I would have picked up the phone, I would have said sorry. Life is too short for pride." He also disclosed that he suspected palace pressure may have played a role in Diana's decision to withdraw from the charity effort, a reminder of the invisible powers that controlled her life. Their bond was special, a royal and a rock star, connected by loneliness and humor. He showed the world a side of Diana that was unrehearsed, unpolished. A woman who laughed, sobbed, cursed just like anybody else. With her, Elton found compassion and a reason for being again and emerged as one of the world's foremost spokesmen for AIDS and humanitarian issues. And now he plays the piano and the crowd gets quiet and there's a moment of silence. And in the quiet of it, he still hears her giggle. He reportedly said, "She proved that kindness and honesty can exist in a world built on image." It was what made her unforgettable. Truth formed their bond, pride shattered it, immortalized in song. Decades later, the world still mourns their death. And Elton still has her memories, like a candle that never burned out. If you appreciate this story, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more untold stories behind the legends.